I now call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Notice of this meeting, the time, the date, the place, and the agenda was published as a legal notice on May 31st, 2024 in the Aiken Standard. Notice to contiguous property owners were mailed and public signs were posted on the properties where action by the board was requested, and that was on or before May 31st, 2024. By June 21st, 2024, notice of the meeting was sent to the city clerk for posting on the municipal building notice board at least 24 hours before this meeting. Agenda sheets were mailed or emailed to interested parties. It is unlawful for any person giving testimony to this board knowingly providing false information. Now that's according to section 22-9 of the Aiken Municipal Code. Each infraction is a separate offense with a penalty of up to 30 days in jail and or a fine of $1,092.50. To the board, you have received copies of the minutes from the May 28th, 2024 meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that those minutes be accepted.
I second.
It's been properly moved and second that the minutes be accepted. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion show by a raise of the right hand. The motion is carried unanimously. The final orders have been sent around and signed, and we will move directly into new business. I call your attention to application 24-93011. That's a variance request to permit a fence on property at 824 East Rollingwood Road, Southwest. To the city, has this been properly posted?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Were there any inquiries that you wish to share with the board?
The planning department did not receive any written requests, comments regarding the request.
Thank you. Presentation?
Yes, sir. The subject property, 824 East Rollingwood Road Southwest, is a 0.68 acre lot in the Maddie C. Hall neighborhood of the city, located on the west side of the city between Richland Avenue West to the north and Forest Hill Drive Southwest to the south. The property is zoned residential single-family RS15 and developed as a detached single-family residence. The lot is irregularly shaped and has approximately 410 feet of roadway frontage along the front of the property. So this is about 410 feet in total length. Because of its irregular shape, lot width and depth varies across the parcel. The request is for a variance to zoning ordinance section 414 to permit an approximate 6-foot tall fence in the front yard of the property. The location of the proposed fence is adjacent to a portion of the northern property line, totaling approximately 25 feet. The applicant was previously granted approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals to install a 6-foot fence along the northern property line on May 23rd, 2023. That approval was for a total of 205 feet along the northern property line. The applicant wishes to increase that total length by an additional 25 feet while bringing the fence away from the property line to match the existing brick wall on the property. Apologize, the text is upside down, but it's a little easier to orient based on it's the north-south. But this is a site plan of what was previously approved. So this 190 feet was approved along this property line here, the northeast section, and then an additional 15 feet. The applicant initially was trying to do about 30, but that was amended to 15 feet to make sure he was out of the site triangle of this intersection. So that was what was previously approved. And this is what the applicant is proposing. So retaining this sort of portion along the property line, but bringing the fence inward away from the actual property line a considerable distance. So they'd be well outside of the site triangle. But in doing so, he's requesting an additional 25 feet on top of that initial 205 that was previously approved.
How many feet in from the property line is he?
I'm not sure exactly. I didn't get that exact measurement. The applicant may be able to clarify that, but it would meet our standard. Essentially, fences are allowed to be up to or on the property line. The only time that we get sort of involved in that is if it's in a site triangle to minimize, or rather maximize the view distance for folks that are, utilizing the roadways. But that's typically a 15-foot, sort of line on both sides here. So it's well outside of that site triangle that we would require to be, at maximum 3 feet in height.
Thank you.
Information provided by the applicant about the proposed site plan for the fence is contained in Exhibit B of your agenda packet, which we just reviewed. Fences in the immediate area, by and large, conform to maximum height requirements or exist as legal nonconforming. The property directly to the west, this property here, actually I'll go back one. A little bit easier to see this one here. That's 736 West Rollingwood Road Southwest. That does appear to have a fence in the front yard in excess of 4 feet, as does 1606 Forest Hill Drive Southwest. I believe that's this property here. But generally, most of the homes have, they have conforming fences. However, most parcels in the area are not as impacted by the roadway configuration as the applicant's property. As you can see, there's quite a lot of roadway frontage. The other exception would probably be this adjoining this property. Again, probably similar amount of roadway frontage. Generally, the maximum fence height requirements have been established for 2 reasons. The first is to promote a standard aesthetic for residential and commercial development within the city of Aiken, which facilitates the creation of a convenient, attractive, and harmonious community while providing for adequate light, air, and open space. The second is to preserve line of sight along roadways and sidewalks to minimize accidents that may occur as a result of reduced sight distance. As depicted on the attached zoning map found in Exhibit C of your agenda packet, adjacent parcels to the west, east, and south are all similarly zoned RS15 and primarily developed as detached single-family residential dwellings. The adjacent property to the north is unincorporated up here. Yeah, and I believe this parcel and this parcel are undeveloped though. So these neighbors, there's no homes on these adjoining lots here. Exhibit D of your agenda packet contains photographs of the property taken by staff depicting the existing conditions of the property. This is just our notice on the property, and to kind of illustrate the portion of the fence was put up along that northeastern property line there, in accordance with what was approved back in May of last year. Again, this is kind of going heading west from that point along the northern property line, and you can kind of see where it terminates. It's a little hard to see in this because of the lighting here, but it sort of terminates right here, just kind of at that tree. And the applicant wants to continue the fence along this brick wall that's existing, where previously it was approved for a little bit further out. But he's requesting for a little bit, about 25 feet extra, based on his site plan. This is just a picture of the property to the west, or two properties to the west, to kind of illustrate there is some precedent for, 6-foot-high fences in the neighborhood. And this is the property directly across the street. Again, similar sort of impact in terms of roadway frontage. So this is a pre-existing fence. You can kind of tell given its discoloration and sort of wear. But again, just to illustrate, there are some in the area that are in excess of 4 feet in the front yard. And just the notice on the adjoining property line. The planning staff's evaluation of the request, as well as the applicant's response to the 6 variance criteria, can be found starting at page 2 of your agenda packet. This concludes staff's presentation. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from the board to the city? Okay, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where he cuts off the corner and comes down along the brick wall as shown here, is he going to extend that back, do you know, along Rollingwood?
I don't believe that's the plan. The applicant may be able to clarify that. But kind of based on this site plan here, sort of appears that it's going to be primarily parallel with that portion of the property line, not kind of going in any parallel to the roadway here. This probably doesn't have like a separate road name, just because it's kind of a strange intersection. But yeah, it's my understanding that it'll be primarily parallel to this property line and not come back down towards the house, if that makes sense. So not in this area here, but like right in here. It's kind of hard to see with this picture, but yeah, it doesn't appear that he's requesting to come back down towards the house, just to come across the property line, but further off the property line itself.
And
So.
in that illustration, there appears to be 2 sections of fence, red, marked there. I don't understand what I'm looking at. You?
Yeah, again, he may be able to clarify exactly how that would look. We just kind of take a look at, overall the length of the fence. We don't necessarily regulate the design per se, but it's my understanding that it's more of a modification. So instead of coming all the way up here and across here, about 15 feet, he's bringing it back down away from the house. This might not be exactly to scale, but yeah, it appears that it's sort of going to curve, or rather follow that existing brick wall, rather than coming closer to the roadway, which that was initially permitted.
And is that brick wall the property line on that corner?
No.
Okay.
It's a little hard to see in this picture. I don't know if I have a closer picture, but it's kind of like in here. Right in here.
Okay.
So yeah, that might not be exactly to scale what was drawn, but yeah, it's going to be back off the property line, more or less in line with this sort of brick wall. So the property line probably extends, quite a bit further out into over here.
Okay, thank you.
Brendan?
Yeah, you can go ahead and leave that up. So the original variance approval was basically for the fence along Carolina Avenue to continue up towards the stop sign, then basically come and approach East Rollingwood, correct? Make that left turn?
Sort of, yeah. I can go back here.
Go back to that, yeah.
It's a little hard to see on this, but yeah, it would, in a sense, come back towards East Rollingwood, this 15 feet.
It was gonna make that left turn, was it not?
Yeah, it was. I think that was his
You
initial,
were gonna block that median area
a portion
where
of it.
Carolina and East Rollingwood come together.
A portion of it, yeah. But I believe I mean, it's been about a year, but he's found that wasn't necessarily the best solution for. I think his primary concern was like noise, pollution. So I think the intention is to step it back off the property line and come kind
Correct, so go back a slide if you would, please. Right there. So basically, instead of extending almost to the end and then making that left turn and coming almost over towards Rollingwood, he's just making the left turn at his own brick wall.
Yeah,
And so it's a slight change of position, and then it's going to be a little longer because
Correct.
he's obviously got a little wider piece of property since he's
that-
turning sooner. right?
correct. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yep.
Got it.
So it'll be all one contiguous fence? Because the way that's drawn, it looks like,
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why it doesn't like exactly line up. Again, the applicant may be able to clarify more the reason behind that. But yeah, again, we wouldn't necessarily, regulate exactly. I mean, he could have a gap in it if he wanted to, theoretically. It's more about the height of the fence, and the fact that it's a little bit longer than what was initially permitted back in May of last year.
and I also looked at the houses around that had the 6-foot fences. They weren't in the front yards. The one over to the left, back side yard. I just wanted to point that out. It wasn't the front, because I went and looked.
Yeah, I could be
You said
mistaken,
it was in the
but
front.
yeah, I mean, technically speaking, if it's in this location here, if I'm not mistaken, we would still consider, the zoning ordinance still considers that a front yard because it's abutting the roadway. Any yard, any portion of the yard that abuts a roadway is considered a front yard. So in reality, these folks have like 3 front yards kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, so it makes it somewhat difficult to comply with these. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room. But yeah, similarly, I mean, really, this whole portion here is considered a front yard. Similar with these folks, I mean, this would all be a front yard. These guys here too. So yeah, the roadway patterning is makes it a little bit more complicated. And some of these, I mean, as you can see, there are a lot of kind of, this is like almost triangular in shape, this lot. A lot of sort of irregularly shaped lots because of the roadway configuration.
Karen?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question from Axe. I'm just curious what the date of the ordinance is that speaks to the 4-foot. When was that originally established? Roughly, I don't.
That I don't know. I mean, other than generally the zoning ordinance was established in like 99 or 2000.
Okay,
So yeah, it's about 24 years old.
okay.
I don't believe that was amended or in any way between that time period now and then, but we are going to be redoing it, so.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to that question. So I think you saw where I was going with that. I just wasn't sure if the ordinance had predated the age of the house where people were shorter. So late 90s.
Yeah, that's when our current zoning ordinance was adopted. To my knowledge, there hasn't been any change to the fencing regulations since that time.
Yeah. Will the fencing ordinances be looked at with the review that's coming?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, because we see a lot of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any further questions from the board to the city? Thank you. The applicant?
Yes, like I said, I wanted to add another 25 feet to it, answer some of your
Would
questions.
you read yourself into the minutes, please, your name and address?
Dennis Lundblade, 824 East Rollingwood Road, Aiken, South Carolina.
Thank you.
The reason I need 25 more feet is before we had talked about going all the way to 190 feet, then add the 20 feet to it. I'm cutting back to about 142 feet, and I'm starting to make basically a 90-degree turn going down to the stop sign. That brick wall where I'll be putting, it'll be a total of 6 feet once it's done, okay? Not brick fence, but it's gonna be wood on the top on the same line as the brick. It will be 20 feet to the center of the road and basically 15 feet from either side to the road, to that fence, if that makes any sense. You was asking about distance. The reason I have the double red line is because that's what I have right now. That basically that 38 one section will be taken down. It's still, I haven't made a mind up if I'm gonna tie it back into it or if I'm gonna have a place where I can walk from the front down to the right. It will still be overlapping, but it might be more of a shadow box instead of together.
The last time I was out back in the spring, I noticed that the utility company had done some cutting and created part of your problem. Is that what you're trying to,
Yes, sir.
mitigate?
It's, the amount of traffic on Richland Avenue has picked up quite a bit, and also after they prune the trees, they're kind of unsightly, but I don't want to take them down 100% until I have something in place. The same thing on the front. Right now, we have some, not a cedar tree, but anyway, some bushes in the front yard that basically are 50 years old. They're starting to stick out in the road. I'd like to put up my fence so I don't see that, but also take that down so people, when they come up to that stop sign, you can have a clearer shot around. And the stop sign is actually past that brick wall by 20, with the white line is 20 feet. The stop sign is roughly 10, 12 feet from that wall. But that's my objective in the long run.
board question to Mr. Lundberg? Go ahead, bud.
Mr. Lundblade, what you have up there, the new fence that you already have that you approved is 205 feet.
Yes, sir.
You're gonna keep the 205 feet, but you're gonna turn a portion of that fence to roughly, I don't know, 60 degrees or so. Is that right, based on your drawing?
It's actually starting to turn right now. If you, up on that drawing at this first. And then basically I kick another 25 feet, right, 25 degree angle, and I go another 25 feet. This part right here will be removed, drop back 2 feet to where this brick wall is. I have 25 feet here, and I have 25 feet on this side. That will be, that the fence will be put on top of.
Okay. So you'll have a 6 foot on top of an existing.
No, sir, no, sir. The total height will be 6 foot.
Total height.
That's where it kind of gets, it kind of looks bad. I got a 6 foot fence in front of it, and this is running the contour of the ground. My brick wall is level, so whatever I come up with 6 foot, that's what I'm gonna keep it at 6 foot on top of that brick wall.
So the only new fence that you're adding is the 25 feet?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Brandon?
Mr. Lundblade, so go back to the actual photo. No,
Sorry, which photo?
that shows the fence and the wall. One more,
That one or this?
right there, okay. So, I mean, to me, you're at the corner. Are you not just building a comparable top, making that turn right there?
Right here
Right.
at the corner. This part of the fence will be taken down and basically set on top of this fence. I'm gonna attach my fence on the front of this.
You're not exceeding out past the end of the brick wall here.
Oh,
is
no,
what-
no, no. That brick wall will be the end of it.
Okay.
Do we have further questions from the board to Mr. Lundblade? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have others to speak to the various requests?
My name's Ron Wade, 441 York Street. I go by this place probably 3 or 4 times a day, and I don't even know the gentleman's name. I used to live down there when I was growing up, and I can tell you he maintains this place really nice, and I think whatever he wants to do is to improve it. And I think that when you look at the old Rollingwood Road, it used to go straight out, and then they moved it over to where the stoplight's out at now. So I think that what he wants to do, I think, would be a great improvement.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wade? Do we have others to speak to the variance request? Final call, others to speak to the variance request? Seeing, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion so we can enter a period of discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
But
I'll make a motion to approve a variance to zoning ordinance section 4.1.4.c to permit an approximately 6-foot tall fence in the front yard on property zone residential single family RS15 and generally located at 824 East Rollingwood Road Southwest, tax parcel number 104-17-15-001. The total length of the 6-foot tall fence shall not exceed approximately 50 feet along the northern property line perpendicular to East Rollingwood Road Southwest. The proposed fence conforms to City Ordinance Section 4.1.5 regarding corner setbacks and intersection visibility. The location of the improvements be consistent with the submitted site plan. The final order shall run with the land, and the final order shall be recorded in the Aiken County ROD office.
do we have a second?
I second.
And then probably moved in second, Judy second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion show by raise of the right hand. The motion is carried unanimously. I call your attention to application 93012, a variance request from Cornerstone Baptist Church, Aiken Incorporated, to permit a sign face change on property at 100 Cornerstone Drive. To the city, has this been properly posted?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Any inquiries that you wish to share with the board?
The planning department did not receive any comments regarding the request.
Thank you. Do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, sir. Cornerstone Baptist Church of Aiken is located on a parcel approximately 8.1 acres in size off Hitchcock Parkway south of Dibble Road. The request is for a variance to City of Aiken zoning ordinance section 8113B4 to permit a sign alteration of 80% or more of the identification area of the face of a sign on property zoned residential single family RS15. The property currently has a legal non-conforming manual reader board sign to help identify the site, located on the southeastern corner of the property, approximately about in here. However, in order to better identify the site to parishioners and the public, a reface of the existing sign is proposed. The current sign is a monument-style freestanding sign, approximately 65 square feet in area. Information provided by the applicant about the site plan dimensions and look of the sign is contained in Exhibit B of your agenda packet. This is a rendering provided by the sign company that was contracted by the church. Basically, they're utilizing this pre-existing sign and essentially refacing this portion here, here, and here. We wouldn't consider this part of the sign face nor this portion, but because they're changing this, rather they're changing this to this, that constitutes basically 100% reface. And the ordinance states that anything above 80% would require the sign to conform to the dimensions of the district, which are quite a bit smaller than what it currently is. This was a site plan submitted by the applicant. It's a little hard to read here, but again, this is sort of the location of the existing sign. I got some pictures later on for that as well. The subject property is developed as a religious institution and zoned residential single-family RS-15. However, the structure's construction and use predate the district classification. As depicted on this zoning map here attached in Exhibit C, adjacent parcels are basically primarily unincorporated, save for the other church to the south. They're not direct neighbors, but yeah, it's basically surrounded by unincorporated property here. These are primarily single-family residential homes here, though. And this is undeveloped to the north and east here. Exhibit D of your agenda packet contains photographs of the property taken by staff depicting the existing conditions of the property and the current signage. This is just a photograph of our notice. This is along Hitchcock Parkway. This is just a kind of closer photograph of the sign itself. Again, the applicant is proposing to reuse the existing structure. Essentially, they're just kind of, updating it, but repurposing the existing structure itself. Again, this is just a close-up. There's a little bit of wear here, so it's my understanding that the church is, desiring to kind of refresh the sign, but not wanting to take it down completely, just kind of repurpose it. But technically that would be considered a reface and is subject to that 80% threshold. This is another picture of the sign just looking north along Hitchcock Parkway. Again, just to illustrate its current state. Again, a little bit of wear is visible in here. This is our notice on the side street. I believe that is, can't remember the name of that roadway, but it's not Cornerstone. They have the separate drive here, which is the address of the church, but this leads back to the unincorporated neighborhoods back there. The planning staff's evaluation of the request, as well as the applicant's response to the required 6 variance criteria, can be found starting at page 2 of the agenda packet. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board to the city?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Nancy?
When I went out there was this wooden structure further down from this. So I thought that's where they were putting the new sign. That's not true. They want to resurface the current sign that is there, and that other thing has nothing to do with new signage.
Yes, that's my understanding. I'm not 100% familiar with what you're the wooden sign you're referring to, but yeah, it's my understanding that their intention is to essentially rebrand isn't the right word, but use the existing structure of the sign, but just kind of redo it and update it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this is I'll go back to what they're kind of proposing here. But yeah, it's the exact same dimensions. None of this is changing. It's just because it's technically a refacing of what's existing here. That is in excess of 80%. That it normally we would ask them to conform to the current standards for the district they're zoned, which is quite a bit smaller. I believe it's 24 square feet and 8 feet tall. So in order to conform, they would basically have to remove that sign and put a whole brand new one up if they were to reface the sign. So yeah, I believe their goal is to just kind of again repurpose what's there, just kind of update it to that design.
Do we have any additional questions from the board to the city?
I have one question.
John?
So just to make sure I understand this, they just want to modify the sign, and if that's what's clicking this in, that's why we're hearing this application, because to do so, it has to be considerably smaller.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, again, the use as a religious institution and the sign itself kind of predate the certain standard for residential districts. Again, typically, I think it's mainly designed for like subdivision entrance signs and that sort of stuff. So it just so happens that they're zoned RS15. But yeah, if they were to change the sign in excess of 80%, which it was determined based on what they're proposing here. Essentially, this is
100%, wouldn't it?
right. Yeah. So anything in excess of 80%, and basically they're redoing the whole face of the sign. That triggers that requirement, and in order to conform to the current standard that they're under based on their zoning, they would have to reduce the square footage to 24 square feet to be in conformity with the current zoning ordinance. So essentially, by proposing this much of a change, it would require them to remove the sign and build a whole brand new one that's about a third the size of what it currently is.
But what they're doing is redoing that sign,
Correct.
so it can maintain its size.
Correct. Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's not changing dimensions at all. This is a rendering from the sign company, illustrating currently what it is. But basically, this will be on top of this existing structure. Yeah. Not like stacked on top. It'll be as if this is what's on their property instead of this.
And the larger upper rectangle is where the square footage is determined, not the base.
Correct. Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, this is sort of just wayfinding. Really, this is the sign face, basically what, for lack of a better term, advertising what, activity is occurring at the site, that it's a religious institution.
Do we have any further questions from the board to the city? Thank you. The applicant?
I'm Heather Dye with AAA Signs in Augusta, and I've been working with Cornerstone Baptist Church for about the past year, trying to get something that works for them, kind of, update. They've got a new brand, as you can tell, a new logo, so they're wanting to update that sign. It's very dated. Was probably built, we estimate, maybe 35, 40 years ago. It's a cinder block base. You know, the sign is basically a solid cement structure. So to remove that would be very costly. And, you know, this has been their sign for 35, 40 years, and we're just basically just gonna modify it by removing all the old letters and stripping all the little racks that hold the letters and just stripping it down and cleaning it up, and then we will put brand new painted aluminum with digitally printed graphics on the sign with their new logo. So just kind of keep it more simplified, more clean look. So
Questions from Brandon?
Yeah, so the old sign has tracking at the base for, that's not the plan for the new one,
no,
correct?
sir.
So there's
We're
no,
gonna remove all the
there's no readable copy other than just the address of the base.
Nothing will be changed. It'll be all permanent. The letters on the bottom that identify the address are about 1/4-inch aluminum letters that will be, you know, attached to the other aluminum. And then the band that has their telephone number, if at any time down the road that number changes or any identification needs to change as far as their website or whatever, that panel can be changed, but it would be a more permanent solution. It's not anything that's removable. So
I see from the photograph, Mr. Chairman, I see from your photograph here, there's some lighting fixture or a lighting fixture, lighting a sign. You don't intend to do anything with that,
well,
do you?
we are you can see in the bottom of the picture, there is some ground lighting. It's just, you know, some ground lighting that they will continue to use to illuminate at night.
Okay.
So that you can have a little bit of identification, you know, in the wintertime when you start having functions at 6:30 at night and it's dark already by then, you know, you need some type of an illumination. So it's not illuminating from, you know, the sign portion of it. It'll just kind of illuminate the name of the church and the address so that if anybody's coming to a function, they can find it easily.
But what I'm saying is it'll remain the same, no change.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Mm-hmm.
Other questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have others to speak to the variance request? Final call, others to speak to the variance request? Seeing, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion so we can enter a period of discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to
Sharon?
approve the variance to section 8.1.13.B.4 to permit a sign alteration of 100% of the identification area of the face of a freestanding monument sign on property at 100 Cornerstone Drive, tax parcel number 088-10-03-001. That the sign shall comply with all other applicable requirements of Chapter 4, Article 4 of the City Zoning Ordinance regarding signs, and that the sign shall be consistent with the submitted design and dimensions. The final order shall run with the land, and that the final order shall be recorded at the Aiken County ROD office.
Do we have a second? Judy, second.
Well, actually, I think
Oh, was it John?
John.
John instead of Judy. It's been probably moved and second that we approve the variance request. We're now in a period of discussion. one of my observations that the church was there first and then the neighborhood grew.
Yeah.
Seeing or hearing no other discussion, those in favor of said motion show by raise of the right hand. The motion is carried unanimously. I call your attention to application 24-93013, a variance request to permit an accessory structure that's on property at 453 Banks Mill Road, Southeast. To the city, has this been properly posted?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Any inquiries that you wish to share with the board?
The planning department did not receive any written comments. There was a neighboring property owner that requested a receipt of the staff report, though. Yeah.
Thank you. Presentation.
Yes, sir. 453 Banks Mill Road Southeast is a 3.98 acre lot located at the corner of Pinehurst Avenue Southeast and Banks Mill Road Southeast. The request is for a variance to City of Aiken zoning ordinance sections 342C1 and 342E to permit a run-in shed for horses approximately 420 square feet in area, 8 feet from the rear property line on property zone residential single-family RS15. The property currently has several detached accessory structures on the lot, totaling approximately 8,319 square feet in area. The primary structure is approximately 3,200 square feet in area and built in 1938. The equestrian use of the property appears to predate the current zoning designation. It's a little hard to see on this map here, or just because of the colors, but basically this structure here, this structure, and this structure are all considered, detached accessory structures to the primary use, the home on the lot. So there are quite a few of these structures that are pre-existing, largely because of the equestrian use of the property. It's my understanding it's been that way for quite some time as well. Pursuant to section 342E of the city zoning ordinance, all accessory buildings on a lot zoned RS15 may not exceed 50% of the heated gross floor area of the principal building. However, lots in excess of 1 acre that are zoned RSS are exempt from this requirement. So typically we would see an equestrian property of this size probably be zoned residential single-family stables. However, this property is zoned RS15, so it is required to adhere to that 50% threshold for accessory structures. Kind of briefly touched on this, but the property was granted previously an approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals to increase the cumulative square footage of all accessory structures on the lot from what was 135% of the primary structure to 260%. That was granted in October of 2010. That's included in your agenda packet, and I'll show it briefly, but that was to build this, I believe it's a covered riding area, but to allow the previous owner, not the current owner, but the previous owner to build this structure here. So that increased it from 135% to 260 at that time. Based on those numbers, the applicant would have to increase the heated square footage of the primary structure, that is this building here, by approximately 14,000 square feet. It's quite a lot, to permit an additional accessory structure of the proposed size, or remove 420 square feet from an existing accessory structure. So they'd either have to compensate by removing or significantly increase the size of the home in order to permit this structure by right. Information provided by the applicant about the site plan and dimensions of the proposed structure is contained in Exhibit B of your agenda packet. This was something that I drew up based on the applicant's submittal, just to provide a little bit more of a context of where the location is proposed. So it's sort of in between these two structures here towards the back, and it's set back a good distance from the roadway. So this is what was submitted by the applicant. But essentially, yeah, they're proposing to build this here, and this is a typo. It should be 30 feet. I clarified that with the applicant, but yeah, it'll be 14 by 30 here, sort of in that back corner of the property. This was the site plan that was previously submitted in 2010 to show the that proposed covered riding area that was ultimately approved. But that increased that square footage of detached accessory structures to 260% of the primary structure. So, yeah, and that was granted in 2010. It was ultimately built. But again, they're proposing an additional kind of structure down in this area, totaling 420 square feet in area. As depicted on the zoning map attached in Exhibit C, adjacent parcels are zoned RS15 and developed as single-family residential dwelling units. I'll go back a little bit. Do I have that? I guess I forgot that in this particular. But yeah, basically all of this, I apologize, I didn't include this in the presentation, but essentially, you should have it in your agenda packet, but basically all of this area is zoned RS15, including the property in question. But as you can see, aside from this lot here to the west, directly to the west, most of them are about quarter acre, third of an acre, quite a bit smaller, and not equestrian in use. They're just sort of standard single-family dwelling units. Exhibit E of your agenda packet contains photographs of the property taken by staff, depicting existing conditions of the property and the proposed structure. Again, this is just a picture of our notice. This is on Banks Mill Road there. This is a picture of the primary dwelling, the home on the site. This is the detached apartment. I believe it's had a number of uses over the years, but currently it's sort of like a guest cottage. That's my understanding. This is looking directly west from Banks Mill Road, just to kind of give you an idea of the existing sort of horse structures that are on the lot. Pre-existing. Oops, went the wrong way there. Sorry. This is a photograph of the proposed structure. As you can see, there is some framing put up, but it's not complete. And this is again just kind of taken from Banks Mill Road, illustrating how far back from the property, from the roadway it is. And these are sort of pre-existing horse structures here that are on the property.
Do you count the square footage of the guest cottage as part of the overall heated space of the?
Yeah. So normally, so in residential single family, they're allowed to have accessory dwelling units. But yeah, that's not counted towards the primary structure, because that is also a ratio that's calculated. Now, I believe this one's also probably a little bit non-conforming. Normally, it would be restricted to 35% of this structure.
Right.
So yeah, it's about half. But yeah, technically, it's an accessory use to the primary use. So this square footage is not calculated. But even if it were, there would still be an excess. Yeah. The planning staff's evaluation of the request, as well as the applicant's response to the required 6 variance criteria, can be found starting at page 2 of the agenda packet. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any question from the board to the city?
excuse me, Max, the photograph shows some construction. That's the location of the shed. That is actually the running shed, partially constructed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was there was that discovered by the building official?
Yeah, that's my understanding. It was noticed that it was under construction, and yeah, basically we made contact with the property owner and the contractor, and basically assess the situation, and given previous knowledge of the property and how many existing accessory structures are on the lot, we basically made contact and let them know that they were in excess of what they were permitted back in I think it was 2010, so that they had to come through this process in order to permit the structure.
And the current owner is different from the owner of 2010.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
One last question for the city. So, back to the guest house, that's not considered part of the structure footage. It is or is not considered part of the accessory footage calculation?
Yeah, that is calculated in the accessory
It is.
square footage. Yeah, so that's why it's so high. I had to do the math, trying to figure out, because I went back and looked at the previous report from 2010, and yeah, based on including this structure, this structure, this structure, and this structure, that's how they got that 260%.
Okay.
So yeah, it's considered an accessory use to the primary use, and therefore the square footage of that is not calculated in terms of that ratio, of that 50% ratio. Again, it's as far as I understand it, it's a somewhat historic property. It actually is not within our historic district, but yeah, a lot of this sort of predates the current standards for the zoning ordinance. Normally, this would be, this is about 50% of this itself, where our ordinance currently states that, if they were to build this now, it would have to be restricted to 35% of the primary structure. So, again, it would be considered legal nonconforming. It's pre-existing, but yeah, unfortunately, it's not added to the total heated square footage of the primary structure because it's considered an accessory use.
Does the board have any further questions to the city? Thank you. The applicant? Would you read yourself into the minutes, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Tim Barton, 808 Hickory Ridge Road, Aiken, South Carolina. Actually, I'm just friends. The owners are out of town, and I wasn't really sure if I was supposed to got licensed or whatever when I was building this, because I was actually doing some painting and fence mending about 6 months ago, and they asked me to build a 30 by 14 running shed at the back because they have a lot of horses in Charleston that they do bring up to train, and the front paddock area only has one small running shed, and they usually have 5 or 6 horses there when they do bring them back for training. So they just kind of wanted to add one for shelter for, storms, rain, and just additional. It's gonna be no water run back there, no electrical. Just the back part of it is gonna be about 4.5 feet tall wall, just to kind of put the water buckets on. Both sides of the front will be open, so they have access to come in and out. So this is all new to me, so I'm kind of I can kind of explain some of the structure, what was there. I think this previous was like an old veterinarian hospital many years ago, but up front was the guest house here. And then the running shed that we're gonna build back here, there's a small one up front, probably about 250 feet off the main road, and it's got a store building that it runs up against. And And then back in the back paddock, probably maybe 500 square feet or 500 feet. The paddock runs and the new one runs right here with the shed, with the arena, which is all sand. And we're just gonna put existing 30 by 14, 30 wide, 14 deep, 10 foot high at the back side. And, just for the horses, have somewhere to come in and out.
How far from the fence is it? It's approximately 8 feet, as says here, but what does approximately 8 feet mean?
Well, it's about a little over 7 feet from the fence line. Well, from the gate, metal fence, and then they got the wooden fence, which their line runs where the gate is. So it's right at 8 feet from the property line into the, into the property. So it's, maybe here to the front here where the shed's gonna be going back.
Okay, why, then that begs the question, why not 10 feet and just have it, you don't have to worry about that variance on the setback?
Well, again, this is new for me. They came out and he decided this is, where they wanted it. And he kind of marked it to where they wanted. And so that's why I started. Didn't know if I was, and I don't know if they knew, they had to come here, because I think they've been here maybe 4 years is all, and they stay out of town pretty much most of the time, unless they bring the horses back for training also. Like I said, I wasn't for sure, didn't know. They just asked me to build it, and
Okay.
that's why I'm here.
So, how many horses are there permanent horses that are there permanently, or just when they bring them up?
Well, when they're back home, they have 3.
Okay.
And then they have a ranch in Charleston that has like 60 or 70 horses that they train, and they have riding and different things. And then when they come back, they normally leave like every Thursday and come back on a Monday. And they'll bring their 3 horses, that's theirs, back to the property. And in the middle area, where the existing horse shed, there's probably 4 stalls, 5 stalls for horses to go in.
Is that
They
what you've
do.
got labeled as the existing horse barn?
This one right here, two here has got equipment, saddles and everything, and then these here got the hay. So there's like, I think there's 5 here that actually put the horses into the stalls.
5.
Yes, sir. And then when they do bring these extra ones back down, 3 is what they have, personally, but then they will bring other ones, and then sometimes they'll have boarders that stay, during the week of the trials and stuff, and then they would bring their couple horses in to stay.
Bud, do you have a question?
Maybe I'll direct this question not to you, sir, but back to Max. I want to understand what we've got here. We've got really 2 issues. Is that right? One, the distance from the back line, 10 feet is required, is necessary. If it were 10 feet, then that would not be a question. Is that right? If it was 10 feet or more from back line.
Yeah, that's a portion of the request.
Portion.
Yeah.
Okay. The other
Yep.
portion is this 420 square feet.
Right. Yeah. If it basically any additional structure on the lot would have to go through this process unless they were to remove existing square footage. But yeah, they're also proposing to be a little bit closer than what would be permitted by right. Now, keep in mind, we do offer, the city does have an administrative waiver process for that. But yeah, since they were coming for the additional square footage, the location was also, part of the request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to my question,
Yes.
since you're not the owner, you probably wouldn't know, but what is behind this property? If it's just gonna be 8 feet from the line instead of 10, who would that maybe be affecting?
Yeah.
There's, I'm sorry. There are some houses that run on the back side. From where this is, then you got a big tree line, and then you have maybe 6 or 7 houses along the back side of the shed.
It's my understanding that this property that's directly adjacent is currently undeveloped.
Yep.
There doesn't appear to be a house or an address on it, and I can zoom out to the larger picture here. So you can kind of see there isn't an address point or a structure, but it's, you know, it's not considered an unbuildable lot. I mean, theoretically, a home could go on that site in the future. But yeah, the proposed shed is approximately, you know, right at adjacent, closest adjacency is this property here.
And the house to the left of that lot is being renovated, I believe.
This one here.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've got a big dumpster out front, so it looks like they're doing some renovation work.
Could be, yeah. So, I mean, it's a pretty, you know, standard single-family residential neighborhood. You know, this property is definitely unique insofar as, you know, it's you know, its use, its equestrian use, and its size certainly. You know, most of them are that sort of standard, you know, quarter acre, third of an acre, with you know, homes on them. But yeah, that one appears to be currently undeveloped. This property owner actually might own this. I'm not exactly sure, so that might be the reason why was never built on. But yeah, it would be considered a buildable lot. So in the future, there could be a home on it.
I have a question of the applicant. I'm looking at this structure that's back here. How difficult would it be to move it to the 10 feet so they wouldn't be needing a variance for that part?
I mean, yes, ma'am, I could do that.
That's not a big problem?
It's not a big problem. I can just, you know, take the ones on the back side, you know, down and just run it up 10 feet. I just, you know, to just take off, I won't have 14 feet deep that I can, you know, bring the 4x4s up.
Okay, and the only reason it was gonna be 8 feet is that's just where the people kinda wanted it. It
Yes,
wasn't,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
okay.
When they came out to show me, they just showed me they wanted it 30 feet by 14, and where she started it at, that's where it ended, right there.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question as well. And you may not know the answer to this just based on what you just shared with us, but I would say to avoid two things having to be approved. If it was moved 10 feet off that line, and I do understand and saw that it's double fenced, and I knew they, former horse person, so
Yes,
I
ma'am.
relate, but actually moving it off the fence line to that 10 feet, in my opinion, is a better solution, because in my experience, when they are turned out together, and if you have 2 or 3 and one decides to be naughty and get the other one behind, the more room back there, the better to get them out of that. And one of the things that concerns me, on one of the sketches, it also looks like, and I wasn't able to get back in there, but if you're facing the open part of the run-in shed, it looks like there is space between, there's like a little sliver of space on that right side.
On the right side?
Yeah, and
That's just kind of my line, when it starts here, 30 feet, it's actually right here is the fence line.
okay,
That covers the paddock, so actually, it's like 15 feet, it's gonna be here and here.
so it's divided by a fence?
Yes, ma'am, yes,
Okay.
ma'am, but this line right here, that was just kind of showing the back property, there's
Okay.
probably another 150 feet from here
Yeah,
to the back. There's plenty of room on the back side of that.
yeah. I mean, because it's a large shed. I mean, standard
Yes, ma'am.
10 by 12, 12 by 12 is usually a typical stall size. So I understand that they're kind of doing the shed based on, I think the recommended is either 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 per horse. So it looks like
Right.
they're allowing for possibly 3 horses in there at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless they're really good friends, they're not gonna do that. But it's just something to keep in mind. I just, from a safety perspective, and
I mean, that will be no problem.
it would be one thing less that you would have to approve on the ordinance to pull it off. It would
Okay.
give them space if somebody got back there and had trouble turning around or rolled or got their feet caught, like, that stuff happened.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So that might be worth considering, just
I could, that won't be a
revisiting
problem.
that.
That won't be a problem.
And then I guess the size, if they are planning on, say, 3 horses, and that to me lends itself to like an overhang and, you know, the 14 feet, if you had a 12 by 12 based on the 36, that's kind of what the math is coming to for me.
Right. But actually supposed to be 30, that's, I mean, it's 30 feet wide.
So 30, so a little
Yes,
smaller.
ma'am.
Okay, sorry, that was the correction.
ma'am,
And then I
sorry.
guess that kind of pertains to a question back to the city as far as that puts the ability to have 3 horses-ish in that paddock. And I guess where are we with the ordinance for how many horses are supposed to be on the property total with 4 acres, I guess, available?
Yeah, the if I'm not mistaken, the standard is just generally 1 horse per half acre. So, what's that? 8-ish.
Okay, so we're still
Probably-
good
probably
with
seven, but-
that. That's still gonna suit
Yeah.
those
Because
numbers.
the back right paddock.
Yeah.
Hasn't anything in there, not running shed at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, they just wanted to get it approved, what they've told me, so if I have to come off 10 feet, that won't be a problem. And if I gotta cut it down, you know, to 12 feet, then
So if there's a fence line running through the shed,
Yes, ma'am.
which is essentially what you said, then that coming off that right side is actually a dead end.
to the right side,
To where that, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, where it says 36 feet across the back, where the B is.
okay, yeah, that's
That's a
the one that's
fence?
right, yes, ma'am. There's a fence is where that long straight line is.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, this is the fence that runs through the middle of it. It's a separate paddock. And then where the shed's gonna end, there's probably another 150 feet back, that's clear. You know, but like I say, I could, no problem bringing it in, you know, 10 feet.
But is that gonna create a gap at the top there where it says 36 across the back, where there's gonna be a fence in the grass?
Well, the fence is, what, 4 feet?
Yeah.
The regular running fence is about 4 feet, so that won't be no problem at all. You know.
I'm just worried about a horse getting stuck back there, that's all I'm thinking of, and not being able to.
Always, you know, if it was, I could always just run like 4 foot, you know, decking board from the corner to the fence. That way there's no, because here, they can't get back there or here. If I pull it out 10 feet, then I'd have the gap from the back of the running shed to the fence where they can't walk behind it. But if I put, you know, just 6 or 7 decking boards, you know, fence boards going across, and that would keep them from going in.
Can we go back to the picture where it's sort of partially built that you can really see?
Yeah, but right here, if I bring this out, say 10 feet, there will be, you know, the gap that they could go behind it. Because the backside right here, I got, fence boards going up about 6 feet, so they can't go through where they'll have the hay and the water buckets. You know, if I pull it out, then I could just run that back 4 by 8.
But where your hand is, and then on the other side, like if you were to move your hand, there's a fence back there, so they
Yes,
could
ma'am.
go down there and it stops at a fence.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
there
ma'am.
is a place where they could essentially be and have space.
Yes, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And like I say, once it ends here, all this is, you know, all running area back in here too.
Sorry, I just couldn't wrap my head around the space there, so that makes sense.
This is like an individual paddock, and then like I said, the fence line runs all the way down around, and then this one here runs, which will be going right through the middle. But like I said, the shed will cover the whole area.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Just one more question, the carriage barn, how's that being utilized?
The one up front,
I'm just looking at towards the street from the existing horse barn. 800, right there.
actually, there's a 12 by 16 running shed on this side of it, and then the back side here is, they have their washer and dryers in here for the horse, for the pads or whatever, and this is an empty space room where the doctor had all his files, and That's all that is. That's just where they keep, you know, the rakes, their tools and everything. And, washer and dryer, and I think they had a refrigerator out there. And then this is just an empty, I think it was his business office where he saw the patients at. It's just empty right now.
Thank you.
Any further question from the board to Mr. Barton? Thank you. Do we have others to speak to the variance requests? Would you read yourself into the minutes, please?
My name is Dawn Emerson, and I live at 1470 Nottingham. I'm a neighbor to the pasture. And is it okay if I just ask a question? My husband and I just retired and moved here and bought that property. So we're not really that concerned about what they want to build now because it's frankly not in front of our backyard. But we don't really know how this process works. So we're kind of concerned about, like, in the future, could they ask to build something like this again, but right in front of our backyard? Like, that's kind of what we wanted to know because we weren't really sure how it works, mainly because I think I spoke to you, and since so much of it is extra from what the zoning is, there's already so much more there than what could be. We are just a little concerned about, will it always get approved where they could build whatever they wanted? I don't know, would you show the street and I'll show them where I live? Just wanted to ask how the process works, because like I said, we just moved here and just bought the property, and their property is beautiful and we love it, but we keep thinking, oh gosh, could they build those little horse run-ins everywhere if they wanted to? So is it okay if I? So we live right here, and where they want to build it, this gentleman and his wife own both of those, and where the run-in is it's basically on the corner of the house that's going to be renovated. And this is he's got 2 lots there, so it's kind of right in the corner there. So it's perfectly fine because I live over here. But we just wanted to know or ask the question of, in the future, could they kind of build anything they want here in the pasture? That's just what I wanted to ask, if that's okay, or would everything have to be approved? Only because we just bought it and renovated, and we absolutely love the view of their beautiful pasture, but that's why we're here, I'm here asking that question, if that's okay.
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer if that's okay. Yeah, basically, any additional square footage to a detached structure would need to come before this board.
Yeah.
So you would be notified of any further structures going up because they're already well in excess of that 50% threshold.
So it would just be a process like this, and
Yes.
we would know ahead of time, and they'd have, you people would have to approve it, something like that.
Yep.
And we listen to the neighbors when they have concerns. So your presence and your concerns are important to come and just share with us.
Yeah.
Because we do.
Well,
listen.
because the person who's renovating that house that you asked about is the person that renovated my house. So I went in her backyard to kind of look at it, and where the gentleman has already built it, it's kind of a perfect spot because it's really right in between. It's kind of the side of that and the side of this. It's really not in front of anybody, so I don't think anybody would think it obstructs their view or anything. So it's a perfect spot. But having seen it, it just kind of made me concerned about, well, what if they wanted to build more, like out into that open area there, which kind of would be unsightly then because you'd see it from all of our backyards, plus you'd see it from Banks Mill. So that was just my question. I just wanted to ask how that would work.
Had to go through this process.
Okay, well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes. Do we have others to speak to the variance requests? Final call, others to speak to the variance requests? Seeing, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion so we can enter a period of discussion.
I so move.
You have to make a motion.
Okay.
No discussion?
I move that we go to the discussion portion.
We are in discussion now.
Do you need a motion first?
No.
Okay.
Anytime you want to make a motion, you may.
I'll make one then.
Go ahead, Nancy.
This is in regards to application 24-93013. For approval of a variance to section 3.4.2.c.1 and 3.4.2e of the zoning ordinance to permit an approximately 420 square foot detached run-in shed located 10 feet
10 feet, okay.
from the property line on the property at 453 Banks Mill Road. The location and dimensions of the structure to be consistent with the submitted site plan, with the exception of the location being 10 feet off the property line. The total area of all accessory buildings on the property not exceed 273% of the heated gross floor area of the principal building. All other applicable requirements of section 3.4.2 and section 4.2.1 regarding the accessory structures are met. The final order shall run with the land, and the final order shall be recorded at the Aiken County ROD office.
A second.
Been properly moved in second that we approve the variance.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, sorry to interrupt. It may be better to amend the motion to just approve the variance to the second section of the ordinance there, 342E. That's just the accessory square footage. So strike that first section there, 342C1. That's the location. I know Board Member Dukes did clarify
Strike it.
that.
Okay, I amend
But
the
it might
motion.
be better to just do the one, relative to the square footage rather than that first section there.
The first section talks about the 8 foot.
Correct, yeah, the
Okay.
342C1 is related to the
Right.
location. So you might want to just amend the motion to remove that from consideration, and also clarify the 10 feet.
Is that okay with the motion maker?
Yes, I just want to make
Yes.
sure that it's clear that they have to
Right.
conform to the 10 feet.
May I nitpick you for just a minute?
Go right ahead.
I would like to see not less than 10 feet. If the gentleman wanted to move it out 11 feet or 12 feet, he could do that. But if we say not less than 10 feet, then he can move it
Yeah,
within reason wherever he wants to.
Right.
Sorry.
I thought that was understood. Okay.
That would be permitted by right by the zoning district.
It's been properly moved in second that we approve the variance. Those in favor of the motion, show by raise the right hand.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I just had a quick question before we
Yes.
move to, if that's okay, from Max, actually. If this gets approved and there is an accessory structure that is as proposed, if they wanted to make any modifications to then create more of a stable situation, run water, run electric, will that come back through us, or would they then go through and apply to get permitting, and so there would be a safety net there as far as taking it
Yeah.
any step further?
That would require a building permit, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it wouldn't necessarily, that's not regulated by the zoning ordinance per se.
Okay.
So, yeah, theoretically, they could if they wanted to in the future. But that would require, building permitting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other unreadiness, Brenda?
Well, just as a discussion point, I guess I'm trying to figure out, at what point is the property owner unreasonably restricted from use of his property? What's the hardship or the conditions? So that would be sort of waiver 3 and condition 4, not a result of his own actions. They're currently at, currently at 260% of accessory buildings to the property. This would grant a waiver to 273%. Keep in mind, 50 is the target. So there's a ton of nice to haves on this property. There's a 4,000 square foot riding arena. There's a 2,000 square foot barn, another 800 square feet for a carriage barn, and this 1,500 square foot guest house. Heck, I'd be willing to round the guest house into the current square footage since it's all living. But even if you gave them the benefit of the doubt there and granted the variance, you'd still be at 3 times the amount of accessory buildings that are allowed under the variance. Now, with true hardship, I would certainly consider something that high. I'm just not getting the hardship. He's got 5 available stalls in the barn, and we're looking to grant a variance on something where he occasionally wants to bring a few extra horses in. He typically only brings 3, at least per the applicant's spokesperson. So this is all for, nice to have, and gee, when they want to bring up an extra 3 or 4 horses, it'd be a nice place for them to get out of the sun. But I don't think that's what we're in the business of granting variances for, just personally. That's where I'm at.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to that, I do agree with a lot of the points that you're making, because one of the things that popped up in our packet was there was a description of a commercial use. I'm actually very familiar with this property. I used to braid horses for the previous owner, so I know the barn, I know the setup, and it was very much a hobby farm for someone who fox hunted. They had their own personal horses. They didn't board. But this kind of lends itself to a satellite operation for a business, based on the description that the owner actually provided. I do understand the quote-unquote need for it, but especially with the neighbor saying they have concerns about it expanding. If they decide 3 more horses during the season works, maybe there's another shed built, and 3 more horses, they're obviously limited to 8, but it's really maximizing a property that to me lends itself to more commercial use as far as personal versus personal. So I think if there wasn't a 5-stall barn and there wasn't accessory structures, and they were just subject to the elements, and it was sort of a run-in shed, workman-like facility, I'd be more inclined to say, well, the horses need a place to get out of the elements, but I'm a little hesitant on this one too.
Mr. Chairman, I heard the word boarding. Now, the 3 horses that supposedly the owner has and brings from Charleston to here is one thing, but I heard the word boarding, and I'll look to my colleague. If boarding is usually could be a commercial operation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're not going to do it for free.
Yeah, and you can have pasture boarding and you can have stall boarding. So you can have someone that's paying you a fee just to keep the horses in your paddock with access to a run-in shed.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a bit of broad spectrum there is what that could mean. Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget, the board does not lose control by either a yes or a no vote. A no vote would do the same thing. It would not approve this variance, and anything else that they choose in the future to do to the property has to come back through the process.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying if they didn't build this run-in shed, they could still board horses there?
As they do now. They just can't come in out of the rain and the sun. At least 2 more.
Thank you.
If we did approve this run-in shed for 3 horses or whatever, then it would lend, and I think this is what you're saying, still lend even more to his, quote, commercial operation, or it could be a commercial operation. If you have more items that are attractive to him, to a boarder, then that would lend more credence to allow more horses.
The process is easier.
I hear the board's concerns on the commercial aspect of this, and I'm probably some merit to that for sure, but just considering it strictly as a residential pleasure deal, at some point you got all the stuff you can put on there, and that's where I'm at as well. So I don't want to. It's kind of a leap of faith without the owner here getting into the commercial aspect of that thing. Certainly, there's some connecting the dots that looks like can be made for sure, but just benefit of the doubt, just strictly on a residential thing, 275% of your total footage being dedicated to accessory buildings. At some point, you just got all you can put on there.
Yep.
At some point in time, you got to say, whoa, stop.
I think I use executive privilege and call for the motion. Those in favor of the motion, show by raising of the right hand. Those opposed to the motion, the same sign, the right hand. You abstaining?
No, I voted.
You voted. The motion is unanimous to deny the variance.
You voted for it.
Correct.
It would have been unanimous.
You voted for the motion?
For it.
Yeah,
I'm
because
sorry,
they're
I mean-
limited with the number of horses they can have on there. And if they want to build more structures, they'd have to come back here, but it's too late to argue that now.
Let the record show that the variance was denied. The vote was 1 for, 6 against. I call your attention to application 24-93014, a variance request from the Aiken County Board of Education to amend location of the readerboard sign that's on properties located at 274 East Pine Log Road. To the city, has this been properly posted?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Were there any inquiries that you wish to share with the board?
The planning department did not receive any comments regarding the request.
A presentation, please, because I understand this.
Yes, sir. South Aiken High School is located on a parcel approximately 68.86 acres in size off East Pine Log Road between Whiskey Road and South Centennial Avenue. The request is for variance to sections 447B, 447E1, 447E2A, 448A, and 4410C of the city zoning ordinance to permit an electronic readerboard sign on property zoned residential family, single family, RS10. The applicant was previously granted approval for the proposed sign during the April 2024 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. However, they had proposed a different location on the parcel at that time. The purpose of the request is to permit an additional freestanding sign in order to better identify the site and provide messages to students, parents, and the public. Information provided by the applicant about the site plan, dimensions, and design of the sign is contained in Exhibit B of your agenda packet. This is I believe it's a little bit off. I think they're kind of coming a little bit closer towards the triangle point of that part of the property. But yeah, essentially this is, and again, apologize, it's a little hard to see there, but you can kind of see the outline of the parking here. So it's sort of in that corner in this area here, generally. But essentially this is a amendment to the location of the previously approved sign for South Aiken High School. I don't have a close-up of that portion of the parcel, but it was initially approved for that sort of heel of the boot there on South Centennial. The school has decided that location would be insufficient and has requested that it be moved to this portion of the parcel, approximately in this proposed location here. This is submitted by the applicant, again, just to kind of illustrate where they're proposing to move it relative to that parking area in the front or northern portion of the school. This is a photograph submitted by the applicant, again, approximate location, but this is kind of the front of the school here, off South Aiken Boulevard. Essentially, nothing has changed regarding the design of the sign that was previously approved. And as indicated by this rendering, it's approximately 11 feet tall, 38 square feet in area, and includes a reader board, 62% of area of the sign, thus requiring the initial variance. South Aiken Boulevard, much the same as the other roadway where it was adjacent to, is not considered a main arterial. Therefore, the reader board is not permitted by right. This limits the ability of the school to communicate messages to faculty, students, parents, and the public. As illustrated in the previous meeting, the subject property is developed as a high school and zoned residential family RS10. However, the structure's construction predates the zoning district classification. As depicted on this attached zoning map in your agenda packet, there are a variety of zoning districts in the vicinity of the subject property, including general business, primarily to the northwest, residential multifamily high density to the east here, and office to the south. There's some planned commercial here, and this is an unincorporated parcel maintained by the National Guard. No other properties in the immediate vicinity are as large as the subject property, and there are no adjacent residential uses to the proposed location. Again, they're sort of switching the location from down here to this heel of the sort of boot portion of the property to up here off the kind of main, or at least one of the main parking lots. There's a couple here as well, but they're proposing it to come off of South Aiken Boulevard rather than Corporate Parkway. Exhibit E in your agenda packet contains photographs of the property taken by staff depicting existing conditions of the property. And the proposed location, again, this is just our notice on South Aiken Boulevard. Again, just kind of reiterating where, you know, the proposed location would be somewhere in here. As, you know, looking south towards the front of the school. These were submitted by the applicant in the previous application. This is the existing signage that is on South Aiken Boulevard. I was able to get a picture of the rear of the sign, so this is approximately where the current or the proposed sign would be. So that's about how far it is from that black sign that's on the north of the property. I know there was a little bit of there was a question of where that sign was in the last application, but yeah, it's in this sort of area here. But anyway, that just illustrates kind of relatively how far it is from the proposed location of the sign, the amended location. This was submitted by the applicant. Again, this is the sign, the monument sign on Corporate Parkway. Go back here. So that's kind of down in this area. And during the meeting in April, the other sign, the proposed sign was approved on the condition that this sign be removed, ultimately. There's actually an additional freestanding sign on the property that sort of is more of a masonry kind of monument sign. I suspect that this is probably the original sign for the school, so it's probably quite a bit older than the other two. And that's kind of in, zoom in a little bit. That's in this location here, sort of in this island. But yeah, that one looks like it's I'm not sure, but it looks like it's sort of the oldest, you know, maybe one of the first signs that they put up when the school was initially built. Planning staff's evaluation of the request, as well as the applicant's response to the required 6 variance criteria, can be found starting at page 2 of the agenda packet. This concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
which two signs will be remaining?
Well, I suppose that can be conditioned based on your approval. But yeah, the previous approval allowed for this sign to remain.
That one? Okay, that's one.
Yep. This
Then the
sign.
reader board?
No, the manual reader board was a condition of approval to remove this sign. This is the furthest southernmost sign on the property.
Right.
But I suspect that was probably because it was kind of across the roadway from the proposed location of the new sign. So that the manual reader board is here. The previous location was here on the other side of the road. So the sign was approved to be in that location as a condition of removing that other sign. But now, they're not really gonna, if that sign is to be removed, they're not gonna have a sign on this approach.
Okay.
So again, it can be conditioned however you like in terms of the removal, but yeah, essentially there's that one sort of smaller sign in black. There's a monument sign, I suspect is the oldest and sort of an original sign. The kind of newer manual reader board, and then a proposed, electronic reader board one here. So, but theoretically, it can be conditioned.
They're past their limit of signs by how many?
So typically, we would only allow one freestanding sign per lot. Again, this is a unique situation. The Kennedy Middle School is also the same parcel. So there's a sign here as well. So again, they would be considered legal nonconforming because it sort of predates that standard. The property is also pretty large relative to the surrounding properties. So, but yeah, normally it would be one freestanding sign per parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Brendan, did
I'm
you-
good.
Well, maybe not good, but.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just clarify one more time. They're really just kind of asking for the same sign, just in a different location. It was just determined that it should come back before you because it was kind of approved based on a previous location. And there was a condition to remove an existing sign as part of that approval. So, we felt it was better to just kind of go back through this process to make sure that, in moving the sign, it got the proper approval. Previously, it was approved based on the condition of a location.
Okay, tell me one more time where one sign or two signs?
So they're only proposing one additional sign, but yeah, currently there appear to be 3 pre-existing signs.
And
So
where,
yeah, it's a little hard with this. So there's sort of one for up in here, this area. That's this sign. So that's as you approach the school, but further north on South Aiken. There's this sign, which is on the southern portion of the property, kind of adjacent to those commercial uses to the south. And there's this sign, which is kind of at the entrance, the main entrance of the school. Oops. So yeah, there's one kind of in this area. There's one sort of here, and there's one sort of here. So currently three pre-existing signs.
and what are we trying to do?
So the applicant is basically requesting, a change in the location of the previously approved sign. So they were approved for a sign down over here a couple months ago on the condition that this sign be removed.
So does that one stay?
Well, that was, kind of another reason why we decided to, kind of go through this approval process, because it was conditioned on the removal of that sign. So, theoretically, that can still be a condition. But whereas before they would have had a sign down here, one sign here, and this one removed, if they were to remove this one, there would be no sign on this approach to the school.
But there would be the reader board right there.
Well, if it were not conditioned to be removed, but the application that was approved previously, that was a condition of approval that sign be removed.
So it sounds like they didn't like the ruling that the other one had to be removed.
No, that's not my understanding. It's my understanding that there was some change in staff, and basically they determined that location was inappropriate.
Okay, so it's about the location, not the condition that was put on it to locate it there.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
So it would then just be I'm going to call it the stone sign, that would remain. The reader board or the electronic new sign that we approved on that opposite corner, they now want to take that and move it to where the monument sign is located.
Yeah, in that same vicinity. Yeah, on that sort of, that kind of, this sort of, as South Aiken Boulevard sort of, turns to the east there in this area.
So I guess a ruling today would be ixnaying the previous ruling, and it's kind of void anyway because the condition was to remove the other sign. So we're really kind of just starting all over again.
I mean, theoretically, but yeah, I mean, you could condition it with the removal of the other pre-existing sign as well. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's more of a sort of technicality that they're moving the location of the sign, more or less, but because it was approved, I mean, like, it was conditioned on the locate be consistent with, the submitted site plan and location, and so that's what they're proposing is inconsistent with that, right? It's a different, I mean, maybe if it was like they were moving it up a little bit over here or something, but I mean, it's, in a pretty significantly different location than what was previously approved, so.
Okay.
But just to clarify, it's just the one sign ultimate. They're not planning two reader boards, new signs. Yeah,
It's just a relocation.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions to the city from the board? Thank you.
No, yeah, one more
Oh,
thing. Tell me where is the reader board going to, where's the recommendation right now for it to be? And how
Yeah.
many are there?
Yeah, it's a little hard to see on this particular, just because it got washed out when we scanned it. But this sort of like, it almost looks like a thumb or something, but that's this parking area here. So it's going to be in this sort of, this area of the
Okay.
parcel,
Gotcha.
just sort of where South Aiken Boulevard, turns towards the east, coming off of East Pine Log.
It's right there at the school.
Yeah, it's much closer to the actual building than the previous location was. Yeah. So,
It's like they'd rather have one on the street somewhere.
yeah, it was previously approved down here.
Yeah.
So some distance, I don't know exactly how far, but, it's fairly far from the actual building, but now it's going to be, a bit closer.
So you have to go by the school to see it.
Yeah, you would have to come off of South Aiken Boulevard and kind of come in this area, versus, yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to see it too well if you were driving along Corporate Parkway or South Centennial.
thank you. Mr. Wade, come and read yourself into the minutes.
Ron Wade, 441 York Street, Southeast. The original spot they chosen, the reason they want to change it is that, like it says, new staff, new powers to be. And what they're wanting to do is they really did at Aiken High the other night, the city council approved, is they really want to put it up in the driveway where a lot of schools are putting them so that parents and students and guests can read it rather than down like they thought they wanted to on Corporate down here. They would like to leave that sign alone because you see they've got more road frontage than most schools do. And then the other problem they have is that they're tucked behind the middle school, okay? So the black sign out there, it's a granite sign, it's unlit. That sign was put out there, I think, just to show people that continue down the driveway. You can see you can't see the building front from here, okay? And where they're gonna one of these, you see those cars down there? The road turns. When you come in, you're gonna be able to see that you're in front of the office. It identifies where the office is located. It also identifies where the parking is, and when they exit, they can also read the sign as they both directions, entering and exiting. Same thing they're doing at Aiken High School. They have entrance signs. They got their name on both ends of this driveway, which counts as the signs, and they've now got it in front of the office. So they added one more sign to it. That's what council allowed last night. And that's basically what they're asking for here. And that's, that's what they've done at a number of other schools. It's just that they were allowing principals more or less to choose. Now facility management's new. They want a little more input on things too, which I think is perfectly their location. That's where, like I said, I think the first time I came here, a lot of schools are putting those types at the door.
So theoretically, you want 3 signs.
Well, I think, the reason I think it'd be nice to have that, when you look back at the history of what some of the schools, I think that sign was probably, I'm not positive of this, but those 2 signs that are existing there were probably put up by classes, my guess is. And I think that it'd be nice to leave them. They're not lit, either one of them. One of them you can barely see because of the shrubbery around it. The other thing is, this sign's not gonna be seen by anything from the street, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just like Aiken High, it's not gonna be seen from Rutland Drive. It's just gonna be in front of the building. And it's not gonna be noticeable that much, except for unless you drive in there and go to it. And that's what they're trying to do, is welcome people, what's going on at the school, that type of thing, along with students. And this would be the last request. This is the last sign.
We hope.
Yeah, and the signs have not changed. They've been the same signs throughout the whole county. And, and all the locations, they have been approved. And we hope that this will be as well.
But
There's, there are two existing signs. One is the monument sign. It's got the shrubbery around it. And it says,
Well, yeah,
South Aiken
they're
High.
both kind of, the one with the horses on the end, I think it's the thoroughbreds on the end of it. Yeah.
That's a monument sign.
Mhm,
Says
that one right there, yeah.
South Aiken High School, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then there's another sign
That's out on the street.
not
On
too
the
far
street.
from that, back this way, that
Right.
says
It's more about where
same thing.
that one.
you take a right there and you go by the stadium and by the church. If you go straight, that's telling you to go straight. You can't see the other sign from there either.
Well, where I'm going with this is, what if that sign, that particular sign was removed? Your new sign that's further down the road can be seen. Would that take away from the fact that that is South Aiken High School and there's a monument sign already there as you approach the school?
Well,
Having another sign all
a
the
couple
way,
reasons they wanted to move it back, I think, is get near the door, front door.
right?
Just to identify the front door. The other thing is electrical. They can run electricity down that way without to run 25 miles.
But they don't want to move this one.
They,
You said a couple reasons why they want to move it back. You're talking about the new sign,
the new sign.
not this one.
Yeah. This sign, no one's mentioned about really taking it down or anything, but I would think they would like to keep it because it's at the street and you can't see the school sign, I mean, the lettering on the building from there or any other signs. They just want to move the reader board sign that they were approved last time, not from back there by the Army Reserve Center up to the front door more. That's what they're asking.
So they want 4 signs on that property.
Well, the 4 signs, you have to, really in a lot of locations, if you have more streets than around your property, you usually allow additional signs.
I'm just asking, it's gonna be, what they're wanting is all 4 signs.
Well, the one, yeah, that's to answer your question. But the other one's at the back of the property, back by the corporate road. So, I mean, no one would even know to turn there if they didn't have that sign. It's an unusual piece of property we discussed last time because it's just, it's in the middle of nothing. I guess they say the best of the last.
I've got a question. Mr. Wade, what's the distance of that sign to East Pine Log Road?
Is it Pine Log Road?
East Pine Log, yep.
Oh, God, that's probably 1/8 of a mile, what'd you say?
Max, can you show the back of the sign?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't even see East Pine Log Road.
No.
That doesn't serve any function any longer.
Way back
Right.
there.
So explain to me the purpose of that, leaving that sign there and then now. It's never served a function for you to be able to turn in off from East Pine Log, marking that as a up this way to the school. And if you've come that far, by the time you see that sign, you're gonna see you're gonna see a 13-foot tall reader board sign up ahead.
Well, probably not because you're really around the curve a little bit. And going in the parking lot, it actually, this road here,
Well, answer me this, what's made you turn up South Aiken Boulevard from East Pine Log?
GPS probably, I don't know.
Okay, so my point is the 50-yard purpose that may serve, I think, is rather nominal
Yeah.
at most.
Okay.
No disrespect to whatever class put it up there, but
So it
if that
should-
was indeed the case.
Well, you know, it's kind of like, I guess, other schools, we preserve the history of those places. And I would think that you probably won't do that.
I don't
It
see
doesn't-
it.
I mean, it doesn't really
I don't
matter.
see anything historical, but now, the granite one with the,
Horse heads.
yeah, that's almost a plaque to me. I mean, I don't consider that a sign.
Yeah.
That's got some ornamental or decorative right in front of the school appeal. I've got no problem leaving that.
Okay. But you rather remove this one here?
Oh, to me, this is just flipping situations. You're gonna put the new sign basically up the street from that one. The old one needs to go, just like what we talked about last time. If you're gonna put it out on Centennial, the other one should go. There's no sense for school signs there.
You want
Now,
that one down?
somehow, if that was truly visible off East Pine Log, I think you would have, I think there might be some merit, because I don't know what makes you turn. Is there actual, is there a DOT sign that says?
No.
So, I mean, I don't, you're right, I guess it's GPS that gets you to turn there.
Yeah.
If you made it that far to read that sign, you're not gonna have any
Well,
problem.
most people probably don't have directions with it coming out of town, turn it, then you can't
Yeah,
onto this road, but if, you know, if you got that other one that, you got another, really kind of, another one, back up.
Back
Yeah.
page.
You see,
Call for the motion, please.
well, I think from Centennial,
right up here, here's the sign, right, I think it's about right here.
Yeah.
We're talking about putting the other one, here's the school, right in here. And then the other one's right in the bushes here somewhere. And then the last one is still down here. So these people here, Corporate Way, South Aiken,
yeah, I don't have a problem leaving the sign on Centennial, the existing one, given you don't, I mean, that's served a function for people coming in that way all the time.
right,
I got no problem leaving that. The school, the way the property is, you need something on both ends of the deal. I've got no problem with that. But you don't, you're putting that 13-foot bad boy up in front of the school, having that little black one 60 yards ahead of it that you still can't see from East Pine Log.
But actually, the other one I mean, if you want to, we could probably lower that down to 10 foot, 12 foot, somewhere in there, 11 foot. Because the other one was, we were having to hire, because, it was kind of like the lanes, number of lanes that were there, turning into all these places. And,
Well, lower's better.
huh?
I said lower's better.
Well, we don't go too low because it's
Right.
we could probably lower it down, 10, 11 feet, somewhere in there.
That's what I'm saying. I think,
You got,
speaking for myself, lower would be better, but
I think we could lower it, bottom portion is 6 foot, I think we could go to 4 foot, be fine.
you're the sign guy.
It would look better too.
Does the board have further questions for Mr. Wade?
Well,
Thank you.
I don't think it'd be a problem doing it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna make sure I understand. We're removing the sign or leaving the sign out front there?
I don't know that we made a definite ruling. I just mentioned that I'm all for keeping the signage that you got, adding, flapping the positions of the new one. But like our last go-round, I think you need to replace the one that has served driving up South Aiken Boulevard or whatever the name of the South Aiken Lane. That little, I don't think it's serving any purpose now.
Maybe we can talk them into replacing that one and put it out there with the minor sign, the other one.
I don't know, I think the little granite plaque is what I call it, memorial is, in good taste there.
It's a granite sign and everything. That's why I think it's probably was a class type project, graduating, something like that, 'cause you don't see too many like that. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Do we have others to speak to the variance request? Final call. Seeing here none, the chair would entertain a motion so we can enter up here to discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance to sections 4.4.7.b, 4.4.7.e.1, 4.4.7e.2.a, 4.4.8.a, and 4.4.10.c of the zoning ordinance to permit a freestanding sign on property at 232 East Pine Log Road, TPN number 122-10-14-001. How do I word this? In addition to the existing signs on the subject property, that the sign shall comply with all other requirements of Chapter 4, Article 4 of the zoning ordinance regarding signs. The sign shall be consistent with the submitted design and dimensions, with the stipulation that the black sign be removed on South Aiken Boulevard. Hopefully that's specific enough. And that they adjust the final sign height to no more than 10 feet in total height. And that the final order shall run with the land, and that the final order shall be recorded at the Aiken County ROD office.
Second that motion.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the variance request as stated. Do we have any discussion? Those in favor of the motion show by raising the right hand. The motion is carried unanimously. You're still down to 2 signs. I see you're down to 2 signs.
And a monument.
And a monument.
With that, the
Make a
chair,
motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned.